Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hunting for Silver Linings. Today is Tuesday, February 2nd in the Great Lakes region of the United States where I am at. I am the chapter director for Startup Grind Grand Rapids. My name is Corey Hart. I also have my colleague, Yorgo Katsanos. He is managing director at Beneventure Partners. Yorgo, where are you today?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. And he's discovering some very interesting innovations down in Atlanta while he's there. Hunting for Silver Linings is a program where we hop around the world and listen to our ecosystem builders, innovators, domain experts to help us inform the community about trends that are emerging, and then also how ecosystems have evolved, especially through this tumultuous last year, where we've seen things accelerate just so quickly. So with that, super excited to have our guests today. We have Daniel and Manu. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you. We are happy to have the opportunity to talk about Malta and the future of the world.
Now, you came across my radar because one of the startups that I help out specializes in serving the digital nomad community, which is been emerging trend for a very long time, but also among everything else in travel has been seriously accelerated. And that's when I saw you pop on my feed. Daniel, I don't know which one of you want to go and introduce yourselves first, but I'll let you guys decide.
Me no, ladies first.
Ladies, okay, yeah, of course. So I work with Daniel on CoCoHub, but that's why I'm on this call today as well. So I'm Minu Schillings from the Netherlands. And I do a couple of different projects, and all of them have one intention, that is actually making the world a better place, and you can do that in many different ways. So first, I mostly work on something that's called the Green Sprint. So we are we're building a global network of innovators who have the intention to help companies to develop sustainable innovations, and we do this by facilitating innovation processes and strategy processes. And then the rest of my time I spent with Daniel on CoCoHub, and CoCoHub is a decentralized network of co-living and co-working individuals and companies and everything that has to do with the digital nomad community. I did my master thesis around the topic of nomadic entrepreneurship. This is also how I got connected to Daniel, and we have been working for 2 years now together on this project. And since this year, we're really focusing not only on Malta, but also globally. So that is super exciting. And I think Daniel could take it from there and tell a bit more about CoCoHub.
Yeah, congratulations. I think we're going to be interested in learning about the Green Sprint as well. So yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, where to start? 32-year-old German who has an anger problem. Yeah, since 2016 here in Malta. Basically, we came over to this little island because the flights were cheap. And I was a freelancer working from home. So I wanted to go to a co-working space in Malta. And there was simply no co-working space. So I asked my girlfriend, what about opening a co-working space? Yeah, a pretty boring idea, actually, because where do you want to go? Like, there are already so many nice co-working spaces in the world, it's hard to compete. But what about the place where remote workers actually share a home? Like, we have this culture anyway in Europe, especially in France, Germany, and the Netherlands, that people just share a house and they just share the costs equally. So we brought over this concept, rented a house, and just run it as a living community, the hippie way. We are pretty lucky because J Combinator, they put us on their Twitter, our little house for 8 people, and we had 70,000 visitors in one day on our website. So we were booked for 6 months. So this helped us a lot. Yeah, and then we were approached by a pretty big CTO, and he was like, hey, I want to invest in you guys. This is going to be something big. This was end of 2017, but we decided against. We just rented the biggest house possible here in Malta, welcomed over 300 nomads, and yeah, in between, the whole thing emerged into what is called co-living nowadays. I started the first co-living association in the world. And yeah, we were just lucky at the right time, at the right place, with the right values, being really loud on social media. And what we are doing is pretty honest, not fake, I think. And that's why a lot of people felt in love with us. So we did this now for 3 or 4 years. Yeah, of course, it was a hippie movement. Just like everyone was looking at us, guys, go and play, you with your computers. We tried even to talk here to decision makers in Malta and told them this can be a huge opportunity for you guys, because they are doing this anyway, attracting IT workers to the island, working in gambling. So the operational system is already there. But now, COVID, Corona changed everything. Tourists are gone in Malta and they know they won't come back that soon. So we published an article how Malta could fix its global reputation. It blew up, got so much attention. We were invited to a government breakfast, and basically the Prime Minister announced that they will put Malta on the map by working on a framework for non-Europeans. For non-European remote workers means mostly Americans. So that's the Malta side of it. We started an association to have a dialogue here, because it should not be just come from one private company, because those things, they can have a huge impact on such a small place like Malta. And we need to include the locals here, as well as local businesses. And that's why we started this association. We have now 100 people in a Telegram group, and we are trying to put Malta even further on the map. The goal is to have placements all over the world in the media, and to bring people here and make Malta a better place. That's the short summary what happened with Malta. If we talk about CoCoHub itself, it started as a house, just like how you say, a mortar and brick business. Put your arm really deep into the drain and unclog pipes. That's what we did. We never made money with this. It's not a really profitable business. But on the other side, it's really, really rewarding, because you meet so many incredible people. So many. The Polish software developers who sits in underwear on the couch, leading a team of 40 remote workers. Then the American CTO, who is really kind of trapped in her own personality in the beginning, and then she lays in a cave and talks about polyamorous relationships. And this is what we define success: if we correct the outer shell of people and connect them. So we are not business first, we are humans first, and out of this, everything will evolve. People fell in love. I know about 5, 6, 7 couples who came together. I know that companies got founded because of CoCoHub. So anyway, we did a lot of mistakes, like every startup, a lot of mistakes. And there was 2016, there was no one out there who could help you in regards to co-living. There were, like, I watched all of the co-living videos on YouTube, 10. I downloaded them and I watched them, 10. So we had to figure it out. No one could even, there was no Airbnb for co-living, and there's still no Airbnb for co-living. So you need to do your own marketing. At the other, and you also need to take care of the community. Maybe someone is sitting in front of you and starting to cry because he recently split up with his girlfriend, but then you also need to pay your bills. A lot of mistakes were being made, and I'm a software developer since a long time, now since more than a decade. So we were thinking, okay, how to put this in software with the right abstraction level. And we came up with the concept of CoCoHub. Means a community should not be bound to a co-working, to a co-living place per se, because I think that's wrong. Because co-living in the moment is not a really efficient business, means the prices are pretty high. So in New York, for example, you have to pay at least $2,800 to get access. Here in Malta, you need to pay 600 euros for a room. Not everyone can afford. So which problem are we trying to solve if we only have a product for the people who already figured out how to make money? So the community should be open for everyone, no matter if they are broke and just have a dream, or if they have a multi-million euro business. They all can connect on a human level, because often it just takes 5 minutes of a talk with someone who is successful, and this will change your life. And this is what CoCoHub is about, to build a support system for everyone who wants to live a free life without going down the capitalist way of selling them Nomad courses. This is pretty easy to cash out if you know how humans work. So we can easily set up a Nomad course, and this is not what we want to do. We want to do it long-term, sustainable. And yeah, we relaunched the website beginning of COVID. So this is 1 year ago. Since then, we have 2,000 members who joined CoCoHub, even though there is no travel in the moment. And last month, we had the highest traffic ever in the last 4 years. But the borders are closing now. So we see that the urge to break free is super high, and we are standing in front of something so enormously big, which needs to be moderated. So that's why we have CoCoHub. Yeah. Did I forgot something, Mino? Maybe the aspect with the ambassadors.
I think you covered it all for now. We can always dive into that later.
Ooh, yes, I had too much coffee.
Yeah, on the topic of the co-living, we have quite a few of those popping up in the U.S. For sure. In California, they're fairly popular, but like you said, to your point, they're very expensive. New York, Chicago, Miami, you can go to all the big cities, and they're very nice houses, but they're really expensive and prohibitive for a lot of early stage entrepreneurs. But then when you get inside, there's that network that you have access to. What I'd like to learn a little bit about is, because we don't have a chapter director for Startup Grind in Malta yet, but before we hit record, we were talking about the unique spot that Malta is and offers entrepreneurs around the planet, and can be an incredible draw for starting a business there. So can you give us a little description of the Maltese ecosystem, as far as like what are the popular sectors, and what's the easiest ways to get plugged into entrepreneurship, since the government is only just now starting to look at being welcoming to outside people coming in?
I think Malta is a pretty liberal place, first of all. It's a mix between Arabic culture and European culture, first of all. And being Malta such a small place, it's super, super easy to network here. And Malta was always pro-business. So they have a slogan, which is called business first. And it's super, super easy to reach out here to everyone. There are no levels of society which you have to break through. So if I want to meet with a CTO, he will meet with me and just sit down. So this is a big benefit compared to maybe Germany, where it's hard and people are hard to reach. And Malta wanted, or is attracting great talent since a long, long time. So it started with language schools, then it went into iGaming. They call it iGaming, which makes up, I think, 20–30% of the GDP here in Malta. And they had a lot of funding programs. The problem is that they are not really popular amongst Europeans, because being such a small country, you need to advertise what you have to offer. And they were always lacking like a channel how to tell others, if you are, let's say, in Berlin, and you want to apply for a startup contest, you have to compete against 300 other teams. It's incredible hard because there's so much talent. In Malta, you have to compete against 30 teams. So why not come over here to the sunny place, have a nice time without any stress, and start your startup? this is what a lot of people do. Also, it's a pretty Mediterranean place, means you can try out a lot of things. You can use Malta as the ideal test bed for your product, because being number one, it's pretty easy in Malta. So I think this is what makes it so special. It's pretty easy to build a network here. People are incredible positive. And yeah, of course, also low tax rates, but that's also a wrong perception which is out there in the world about tax evasion. It's not the case anymore. So this is not like per se a place where a lot of shady companies are being situated. This was the past. They want to do better, and they want to attract companies which actually have a substance. And we see this happening. For example, Binance was considering to come over, which was the biggest crypto exchange. And I think they traded in 24 hours half of Malta's GDP, yearly GDP. So yeah, did I answer this question? Mino, maybe you have to add something.
Yeah,
So-
I think I forgot one really interesting thing why Malta is very interesting for starting entrepreneurs is that we have a population of 500,000. So it's a perfect pilot country because it's quite easy to reach a big percentage of the population. So and also all the demographics are there, so you can quite easily test. And there are a lot of organizations here and funds here and like startup accelerators and summits and talent that you can tap into and really build a network. So in that sense, it's indeed quite easy to build a startup and start testing your ideas here. And especially because Malta is also quite a highly educated country. The amount of people that goes to university is very high. Which means that even if you can't find the talent you need among the experts that are there, you can always find it among Maltese people. And it's also a English-speaking country. So from wherever in Europe, if you go to Malta, they speak Maltese, but they also speak English. This makes it very easy to start exploring. So I think that kind of sums it up. But for me, it's mostly the speed. The speed that is very interesting. They, like when they come up with something, it's fascinating to see. Like I've only lived for 1.5 years in Malta, and within that 1.5 years, we have tried to put ourselves on the map and actually succeeded in some cases as the blockchain island, the quantum island, and the iGaming island. And within a couple of months, they just pulled together resources and organized huge summits and got talent over and really like boosted that network. And that is quite impressive to see that a country pulls that off that quickly. So I think all of those elements together make it just very suitable for especially starting entrepreneurs to start exploring business ideas.
Corey, to add to this discussion, I think what is also very interesting is the history of Malta. Because of the proximity to the European Union, the pharmaceutical industry and the electronics industry were very popular in the economy. So what Minu said about highly educated labor force is very clear, multilingual and all that. Of course, tourism and so on and so forth. So you had the, so to speak, instruments of growth as far as new technology is concerned. Also the location of the island. And don't forget that it was in 2008, which is only 12 years ago, 13 years ago, that Malta joined the euro. So in a sense, it did not feel constrained by European policies. The banking system is fairly open. FinTech was very important in getting through the cross-currency payment systems and transaction systems. So the history is wonderful. And of course, the academic institutions in the country are fantastic. When I was sailing around the island, I was always very impressed about the infrastructure, which was an additional issue that was built a long time ago, and it's robust.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a lot of forts, and that is also actually an interesting part of the history that Malta always have been very multicultural. Like we had different people from all over the world conquering Malta and living there for a while. We had the knights. We had Malta being like the hub for ships and everything and for trade. So it's always been very multicultural. You still see that in the culture, you see that in the society, in the way they communicate. And that also makes it just so much easier for people from everywhere in the world to tap into, because either if you're from Europe, North Africa, or the Middle East, you can feel at home in Malta. And that is kind of special, that there is something for everyone.
So on that topic, when an entrepreneur is beginning something in Malta, is it fairly easy to access those markets? And is Malta like a good starting point, like a land and expand kind of mentality? Are there resources to tap into to access that kind of those opportunities?
I can just talk about myself. I think starting a business in Germany is quite hard because you have so many regulations and it's really hard to breathe. In Malta, everything is more relaxed, so this gives you a little bit more peace in your mind. But it's super easy to get in contact with everyone here. Also, the internet is super fast. So the minimum speed, it's 250 Mbits everywhere. They are rolling out gigabit internet, fiber optics everywhere. They have 100% cellular network coverage. So that's a big bonus. And also, if you take the idea of giving home to the knights since centuries, and even if we would take this idea now and switch it and transfer it to the modern times, the good knights are remote workers and digital nomads. They want to make the world a better place. Freedom for them is really important. And if Malta would give them a home, it could be physical, but also virtual. This would just make sense because this is what they did always in the past. If we leave our home countries, where do we get health insurance from? We have to rely on an American company, but companies fail. It's just basic data. They fail, they go bankrupt. So for me, I have a problem relying on a company for my health insurance. I would rather rely on something which is the NHS in the UK, on a national healthcare system. And if we would open up this healthcare system to others who have a higher disposable income, this would just make sense. They pay less, but receive a pretty high quality of healthcare. The same with pension funds. Where do I get my pension from? Everything right now feels like a gray area if you are a remote worker. You are somewhere in between. So we need to have a new home. And if Malta sees this opportunity, then the future is great because we are no longer correlating the growth of the economy to the limited physical space available here in Malta.
So on that topic, Daniel, does Malta, in some of these changes from the government, do they have like an e-residency program that's coming up? Like there are other spots that are that have very like robust systems to support what you're talking about. So like, for example, like in Chile, you can pop over there and get a visa in 2 weeks as an entrepreneur and get funded and get a spot in a co-working space and find a place to live. In Armenia, same thing. Ukraine, same thing. Like where are you on this journey of being so?
I can only say so far they see this. They are working on it, and soon we will have some news coming out, but we can't tell too much, but I can only say they are definitely on the right way. They are trying not to take a shortcut, and it looks quite promising. But in general, getting residency in Malta is super easy, but it's about communication. The communication was missing in Malta for a long time. To start a company here takes you one week. To get your residence here, you just go to a building, and it's a straightforward process. So of course, we are also pitching those ideas to the people here in charge, and they are aware of it. It just takes a little bit more time here in Malta because they never needed to act. Compared to Estonia, Malta was always well off. Why change if there's a lot of money coming in? Because Malta was never a poor place. So why act? But now it's the time to act, and they need to act. And yeah, looks good. Future looks good.
You're starting this digital nomad summit this year. What does that look like? What's the purpose of the summit? And is that a spot where people can that they're going to be able to learn how to get plugged into the community?
Yeah. So of course there is a big question mark attached to it. We don't know what is happening, what will happen in the future. We don't know what will happen in the summertime, but for sure, Malta was always great in pulling off conferences. So we saw the blockchain summit being held in Malta, attracting thousands of delegates to this island. So this is already existing. The infrastructure is already there. So there is a question mark attached. We need to see how things evolve. In the moment, Europe is closing down borders again. We have no one coming in anymore to Malta. So, but definitely that's the goal, because if we see other big Nomad conferences, which happened on cruise ships, for example, they are also no longer possible. And it won't happen this year. So that's the idea, but there is still a question mark attached to it. It will happen. The question is when, and the plan is end of this year.
George?
Yeah, sure. Mino, what I was interested in finding out is this. Let's assume that Corey and I came tomorrow with our European passports and we rented a house downtown or an apartment, and we said we want to build e-commerce. And we had about, let's say, 1,000 euros each. Where could we find support in terms of both infrastructure, but also in terms of investors? What is happening at the angel network system on the one hand, and or institutional investors? Do you have local accelerators? Do you have local success stories, both at the entrepreneur level, but also at the investor level?
Yes, absolutely. Although I think it's more governmental fundings than angel investors at the moment. We do have a lot of fundings available, European fundings, like tapped into startup accelerators.
Can I interrupt you there? We hear that all over Europe, but it's very bureaucratic. We are investors that came out of, let's say, US, where you rely on government funding in the last instance. You don't expect the government to help. You see that the private sector is much more agile, much more decision-oriented. How successful is this program of startup across Europe? What do you hear?
Actually, we are a big fan of actually pushing our business without any funding of the government and just sort of bootstrapping or building our own way towards system that works very well. It just means, and especially within Europe, because we don't really have that angel investor ecosystem. Like I cannot speak very well for Malta in this sense, because I didn't start my business there. I personally started mine in the Netherlands. What I know there is that our ecosystem is quite careful and quite cautious. So we don't really have pre-seed or seed investments. More like if you're already quite established, then they will start investing in you. But really at the beginning, they're very careful. And if you, for example, go to a startup program or a accelerator or an incubator, they often do not give you support in angels won't actually invest money in you, but they will invest in skills.
So in a sense, what you're saying is that your first investors tend to be friends, family, and very close associates. That's where the seed capital comes from.
Crowdfunding is a really big thing here. Yeah, and bootstrapping. And then like once you really already have like a proof of concept and it's really working, then investors are starting to be interested. But like
pre-revenue or post-revenue? Pre-revenue or post-revenue?
Yeah, post-revenue. That's the thing. It's very cautious. Yeah.
We had a program called You Started, where I think you received no strings attached 22,000 euros. It was pretty easy to apply. The success, like you had 30 people, 30 teams applying and 10 got the funding. So that's an incredible high success rate. This was live for the last 4 years. And in fact, we also had a guest staying at CoCoHub, and she got the funding, and then she started her company outside of Malta in Croatia with Maltese funding. And now recently, there's another entity called Malta Enterprise. They published a funding scheme between 250 and 800,000, something like this. And yesterday I had someone coming over here to CoCoHub, and he received, in fact, 200,000 for an app where he wants to connect fitness instructors, and they use Malta as a test bed. But he said, in fact, it was a long process, and it took him 6 months to get the money.
And
From where did they get the money? Who was the investor?
yeah, it's government.
It's a government. It's a Malta Enterprise. It's called Malta Enterprise. But I just think there's not a lot of competition. And this is what makes Malta so special. There's not a lot of competition.
I think overall with this investment and funding that the ecosystem in Malta, Europe, and then if you compare it to the United States, it's just completely different. Like it's the way to go is really, really different. For us, it's just easier, and also in most cases the way to go to either go with governmental funding or start with your own circle, and then later on in the process start for actual investors, to look for actual investors. Yeah.
So
Also,
again, to go back to my original question, for Corey and I, we should have our friends, family already in place. We should come with our own capital, become revenue generating, and then look for investors.
No, not per se. I don't think so. I think you can also build your own circle. Of course, that's what we started with this conversation at the beginning, is that it's very, very easy in Malta to find people who are interested in your ideas, to find people who can help you. But again, they often will point you in the direction of governmental funding. That is just like, that's just what happens. Can't really make anything else of it.
Why should you just bind it to a country? It's about the network, and the network here is incredible, powerful. In fact, I told you, after we run the first house in a really hippie way, we got approached by a German guy, a CTO of a big German telecommunication company, and he said, "Guys, I want to invest in you." So it's about the people who are here. And there are a lot of incredible people who can get you in contact. I think that's what's so special about Malta.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Now, Manu, I'd like to learn a little bit more about the green sprint. You had mentioned that very quickly in your intro. And building companies in a sustainable way is something that's very attractive to a lot of people, and ESG is becoming very popular right now. It's very trendy. It's been around for so long, but it's trendy now. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background in sustainability, and then also, a little bit more about the company?
Yes, of course. So I don't have like an academical background in sustainability. I just saw what many people see at the moment, is that we do need to start living more sustainable on this earth. We will have to move from the destructive way we set up businesses right now to a sustainable way, and eventually to a regenerative way. So really started like an autonomous journey, and I just was reading everything I can read, and I'm just talking to everyone I can talk about. ESG, the SDGs of our purpose and impact, and like how can we make this sustainable shift. What I do have a background in is in innovation processes, and how you can accelerate innovation and break your thinking patterns and come up with different solutions, and really question the assumptions of all the like things we're doing right now. A lot of things, a lot of business models, a lot of concepts, they're just built because we do not question our surroundings. We do not question our systems. We do not question that things are the way they are. And that for me is a bit silly. So we challenge companies and we challenge individuals to question what they built and how they can do this in a more sustainable way. Like the business model, for example, a jeans company is working with. It's like, okay, they want to become more sustainable as a jeans company. So you can either decide to use more sustainable materials for your jeans. You can do your distribution in a more sustainable way. You can look into social development or look into your supply chain. But you can also completely question your business model and think, okay, what is the purpose of selling jeans? Is that people own jeans? Or is it that people are comfortable and protected from wind and weather, and that they're warm? And do you need to own a pair of jeans for that? Or do you just need to be dressed? So you take the ownership out of it and you said, okay, then we'll rent jeans. We have a circular jeans business model. And you can do this with like many, many different companies. And often the concepts, like once you come up with them, they seem to be very logical. In many ways, because they go back to how we do things in nature. Nature is also circular. We made it more linear. So if we go back to those models that are closer to the natural systems and that are closer to circular regenerative systems, it's often like, how did we not come up with this sooner? Like, why have we done this destructive way for decades, even though that we knew that we were ruining the planet and like over polluting and creating a lot of waste. So what we do with the Green Sprint is that we help companies and individuals through this process of realizing and questioning all those assumptions, really looking into what are the end results that customers really want to gain, how is this supply chain set up, what is the bigger picture? If we take a systems thinking approach to this, where do we have direct influence? Where do we have indirect influence? And then really look for ways, okay, we can do this and get to the same result in this and this and this way as well, but does it really work in real life? So we won't only discover and like uncover new ways of doing it, we also like then develop concepts of how they can do it, and even prototype and test with real life customers to see if this also actually works. So it's
Sure.
like the design thinking approach combined with life-centered design, and then helping companies through this whole process. So for me, it's almost a combination between corporate psychology, because it's often a mindset shift, just a different way of looking at things, combined with business development and prototyping. And if you put it all together, you can really help a company. Yeah.
And do you work with individuals and companies one-on-one, or do you have like a workshop model, a cohort model?
No. So we work with workshops. We call them sprints, like based on the sprint model of Google Ventures. That was our starting point. And then we adapted it and we added many different things or methods that make it more suitable for sustainable development. So we work with whole teams, preferably maximum 8. After that, it becomes a bit difficult. And then what we really want to do is within that team, have everyone from different departments, so break out of silos. So I don't want to run a sprint with only people from the marketing team to then end up with a concept and a product, and then developers have saying that, but that's not possible. Mm-hmm. That's just not the way to go. And that's also a waste of resources, it's a waste of time, and like any type of waste is not sustainable, of course. So we really want to like encourage company break out of the silos, break out of those KPIs that are conflicting. Make sure that when you go through an innovation process, get someone on board from every part of your organization, and make sure that they all have a sense of ownership of the prototype or of the concept that is the result of this process. Because that is like what a lot of consultancies do. A company comes with a problem. They said, okay, we want to make this product more sustainable. and then the consultancy goes off and comes up with a solution, or like designs a designer firm, and they design a new product, and then they present it to this company, and they don't feel any sense of ownership. They don't know how they got to that conclusion, to that result. But if you take a whole team from all over the company, and they really together go to this process and understand where this concept comes from, then the likelihood of it actually getting implemented and grow is a lot bigger.
And how big is your team?
We are 2 right now, because we just started in February. We do have a flexible shell, like a lot of people that if we would like to tap into them because they have certain skills, for example, like UX designers or developers or behavior change experts, can always give them a call. It really depends on what kind of company you're working with, what you need. It can go in many different directions.
How do people get in touch with you and your organization if they're interested in pursuing this methodology?
Mm-hmm. How do they get in touch with us? So we push a lot via LinkedIn and online, like, because we think that with this you cannot really go through like growth hacking techniques or like strong marketing and just push it out there. It's very important that everyone we work with really knows that we are good at what we do and that they trust us as a person, because facilitation it's really personal. And you are going to work closely with a team. It's not just a product. You're going to work closely with this team. So this team has to know that you're an expert, that you know what you're doing, that your communication style fits them. So actually, people who contact us are people who know us and who have been engaging with our content and with us for a longer time. And that's why we organize a lot of like events, and we do a lot of content that go deep into actual thought-provoking topics.
Sure. So Manu, we only have like a few minutes left, but so do you have a website? Like how does someone, like how does anybody watching this and that wants to work with you find you?
They can give me a call directly, of course. I can always drop in my number, and they can go to thegreensprint.com and just have a call via there.
Okay. Yeah. So I went to the website, and you have some testimonials there. I know that you've only been doing this formally for a little bit of time, but it seems like you already have some success stories. Can you speak to any of those?
Yes, of course. We worked with a very interesting company that was it's a company that is doing good by making crackers. That's sort of the way to go. So they only employ people with a distance to the job market. So they have a very, very strong social vision. But they did have to work on the more practical and sustainable side of it, the strategy side of it, and we helped them through that whole process to give them a better idea of not only having a great vision, but really creating impact and sort of getting alignment within this company, because that is like, you can have as an NGO or as a social enterprise, you can have a great vision, you can have a great mission. But if it's not super clear what your, like we call it, your SHAG is, your sustainable, hairy, audacious goal, then you don't really know what you're working towards to. So this was more of a strategy session. But for us, it's very important that we get all those people on the same page and then get the noses in the same direction. And if you have done that, like if you've gone through that process of aligning and knowing where you want to go as a company, then only you can start innovating and really making a difference, because you need to know your starting point, of course. And I think Carrie's did a great job in that, the cooker company. And now we are working with a social enterprise who is making sports inclusive for everyone. And the same here again, like this is a everybody is a nobody example. So they try to save the world. We went through the strategy process with them. And they now have a way more targeted and way more sustainable focus, which means that they can actually start making impact and start measuring impact and know what change they make in the world, and start, instead of like just doing good without knowing what you're actually doing.
Well, I appreciate you giving us an example of the work that you've been doing. And it's coming to the end of the hour here, so we got to wrap this up. Daniel, thanks for letting us know about what's going on with CoCoHub. Both of you really an insight into what's going on as far as the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Malta. And George, any final thoughts?
Well, I want to thank again both Minu and Daniel for the time. I think it's very interesting to see that the younger intellectual capital is not confined only to Berlin or Munich or London or Paris, but it's moving throughout Europe and is looking for adventures and business opportunities. I think this is wonderful. And the fact that you're able to bring together both your individual entrepreneurial spirit and be helpful to local government, I think that is very important. What I see here in the US, I see a lot of growth in the regions. As you have both seen, Silicon Valley is moving beyond the Silicon Valley. So we have a spread out of innovation. We have a spread out of the corridors. Atlanta is the center of healthcare. You have Boston and Cambridge, of course, being an innovator of all kinds of things. You have Dallas, you have Chicago, you have Grand Rapids. I mean, technology is coming from everywhere. It is simply a question of being able to prioritize your target and your focus. And I'm delighted to see how focused you are in your work. Congratulations, it was great to talk to you. And if there's anything we can do, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Grazie Afna, that's Maltese for thank you.
Obrigada.
And
Portuguese.
Thank you all very much, and we'll follow up with all the links and everything for the publishing of this video. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.